Okay, this is like a whole thing. This is my first stage in over 2 years, I have been laughing at my own jokes for so long that I'm just like, I need your energy here because I have so missed it. And also, this is just, so you all know, confidence is like not something you get from a good pair of shoes or your body or great hair or great makeup or a great outfit, because I look bomb as hell with underwear up to my ribs and I am shaking. This was a damn choice. This is a damn choice to be confident today. And that is kind of the whole point. All of this is not how do we get somewhere to do the things that we want to do. It is openly an act of choosing. I love when people talk about, how fear and excitement are the same emotion in the brain, that feeling at the top of a roller coaster, you are both terrified and you are excited and you're about to take this ride. And that's what we're doing today. So we're just gonna go on this together. This sounds really unprofessional. I don't prepare anything. So we're just gonna go. But we're gonna have fun. I'm gonna share with you my story, and I'm sure you've heard so many different stories and so many different success stories of like how people have gotten places and how they've grown their brand and how to be an influencer, and mine's gonna be entirely different from that, or there might be little pockets of the same. But take notes. If you wanna take notes, ask me questions at the end, because we are gonna just go into it, and then I'm gonna take some time. I'll probably sit on that couch and we'll just get into some conversation together. So to start this off, first of all, Utah is like, first of all, your soda culture, like, I don't think you all understand. Do you know that doesn't happen anywhere else that I've ever seen in my entire life? I am so far into the soda culture now that I might need to open a franchise in Canada. This is like, it's a whole thing. But anyways, I'm loving your culture. But Utah is so near and dear to me because 14 years ago, I actually was 23. I was married. My knees are literally shaking. Can you see it? I hope not. 14 years ago, I was a 23-year-old mother of two who my husband at the time had us move 6 hours away from family and friends, anybody that I knew. And in Canada, we don't really do that. You like stay where you were born. So that was a lot for me to have to like suddenly go and be a part of a new community and know nobody. I was not confident at all. I've lost all of my securities and went to this new city. And I remember the day I found a blog. And of course it was from Utah. They were all from Utah. They all had these adorable little names. Is the Pioneer Woman from Utah though? Because she was one of the originals. But like tater tots and Jell-O, I heart nap time, fingerprints on the fridge. And I thought, I was reading all these stories and feeling all these emotions for people I've never seen and I've never met. And in a time of having a 2-year-old and an infant and being a stay-at-home mom with no second car, that was my connection to the world. And it was a world away, and it was almost entirely in Utah. So I just felt community for the first time. I didn't feel alone in motherhood for the first time. I felt inspired to do things like doll up my front porch and do twine around a wine bottle. If you weren't part of like OG blog world, like you don't even know. We did a lot of crafts. We spray painted a lot of things. But at some point I got to this place where I was like, I just want to be a part of this. Like I want to talk back. I feel like I'm having a one-way conversation and you're going to find out I'm a talker. So I needed to talk back some way. But I didn't have access to anything that everybody else did, like startup money to get a blog designer or anything like that. I had my coding skills from MySpace, and I had a laptop that had no backlight to it, so I held a flashlight up to the back and I Googled how to code your own blog. I'd love to tell you it was amazing. It could probably win awards for the worst blog ever. Like it was lacy and it was a whole thing. And I would write about anything and everything. Of course I did a wine bottle. Of course I did that. I did all the crafts. And I remember pitching myself to like have little ad spots on my page and all of these things, and I named it after my 2 daughters, Gemma, whose nickname is Birdie, and Maya, nicknamed Papaya. So that's how the Birds Papaya came to be. And it started by being a very lonely mom who just was looking for community and connection. But blogs shifted, and eventually it became what we know now as social media, mostly Instagram. And we went away from it being pictures of our homes and our front porches, and it went into, what are you eating and what are you wearing? I was a big girl my whole life. I couldn't ever wear the clothes that my friends could wear. I had to drive to the States, actually, because I'm up in Toronto area. We didn't even have Old Navy. I'd have to cross the border to go to a store to buy jeans in my size. So you can imagine the panic that happened in me when I realized that we were flipping the cameras onto ourselves. All I wanted was to be a part of this. I'd spent my whole life kind of using my personality to be part of community, and now I felt like I couldn't do that because all we were doing was taking pictures of our bodies and our outfits and posting an inspirational quote that we probably Googled 30 seconds before. That was a time. So I did what a lot of people do. I went on a weight loss journey. And you have to remember, at this point, I'm 6, 7 years into this. I've never made a dime. I'm doing this out of pure, sheer passion and just loving the idea of having something that was outside of motherhood, that it wasn't just about, I was only a mom, right? I needed something beyond that, and I was always a creative person. So when it came to it now suddenly being that my creativity had to shift onto me, it was very easy to download an app that would tell me to eat what a toddler should eat in a day, to have no money to spend on a gym or a trainer or any sort of nutritional guidance, and essentially begin to lose weight by obsessive habits. I ended up losing 100 pounds. And I became a worldwide sensation. I was on the cover of Transformation magazine. My story was all over the internet because I was the stay-at-home mom who didn't even go to a gym who lost 100 pounds. What you didn't know was that I also was losing feeling in my legs. I was losing hair. I was losing confidence. And I was editing every single photo I had. Because the problem is, as I was losing weight, I was gaining this attention and gaining this validation from people that I had never experienced in my entire life. You can imagine if you spent your whole life kind of being on the fringe of the cool people, to suddenly be praised for what you look like and be awarded constantly for doing what felt like everybody wanted me to do. I was enthralled into this. And I got a following from it. I think I got 60,000 followers at the time that everything sort of went to crap. I was about 2 years into this dieting weight loss page, doing before and afters every Tuesday. Every Friday I'd show my face before and after, and I'd usually add in some sort of sentiment about how this was healthy, this was good for me, and this is the best I've ever felt. I actually couldn't leave my house because I was so terrified of people seeing me in real life and realizing that I wasn't, without wrinkles around my eyes, that, I actually did have loose skin, or I wasn't this perfect form that I had created, this image that I had created online. Because I had essentially made my body my reason I was special. That was going to be the thing that people liked me for, and there's a certain sense of panic that sets in when you realize that you're on a performance track, that what happens when there's no more afters? What happens after the after photo? I ended up going down to a size 0. Like I said, a slew of health issues, doctors who didn't even have a concern about it because I was skinny, and congratulations. Clothes fit me everywhere. People loved me. The girls that were mean to me in high school suddenly wanted to be my friend. You would think that that's a dream come true, but it is the most gutting reality when you've been the same person the whole damn time. That's a pain that so many people don't even realize. And my pain had to go even a step further because The picture-perfect reality of being an Instagram mom and blogger was also having a picture-perfect family. And in the midst of going through everything and realizing that my body was struggling, I also was struggling. And I ended up walking away from an 11-year marriage to move in with my parents at 30 years old with 3 kids in tow. I did a complete restart on my life and a complete restart on my social media, which after almost a decade was a very terrifying thing to do. But it was the right decision. That's one of the most beautiful things about being wrong, is the opportunity to change things around and do it right. If the whole purpose of me losing weight was to go out in the world and do the things and show up for my kids and live this full life, I wasn't getting it. I was recluse. I was terrified. I wasn't getting in a bathing suit. I was just talking about getting in a bathing suit. I hated being around people. I hated shopping with people. I picked myself apart because I thought, that's just motivation. If you hate yourself, you're just motivated to find more ways to improve upon yourself. So I had to go on the very uncomfortable adventure of gaining weight. And we don't really celebrate that a ton, but trust me, it's the best. And I ended up going into a new relationship with my now husband, somebody who taught me in a random car ride as I was having a moment, insecure, talking about how uncomfortable it is to gain weight. And he said to me, "Oh, bodies are meant to ebb and flow. How could you possibly have a goal? How could you possibly hinge yourself on something as variable and as vulnerable as a body? You can't find your worth there. It's going to change. Who you are today is not who you are tomorrow. And if you have a goal for later on, well, that's going to change too. The goalpost is always moving, so we can't hinge who we are and what we're doing in our social media and our accounts and our brand, because person and brand has no real line anymore. Then how are we going to find out how to actually love ourselves, and how am I going to be confident? Those kinds of conversations are the things that I think about all the time, because it really has been quite a journey through losing 60,000 followers, because everyone followed me for weight loss, from moving away from slicing a cupcake into quarters and telling everybody that that's how you manage cravings. It was a journey from stopping using language like good foods and bad foods. Here's the news, guys, a bagel isn't murdering your grandmother. It can't morally be bad. There's just nutrient-dense food and not nutrient-dense food. I'm not a nutritionist, don't take advice from me, but that's just things I've learned, mentalities that I had to rewrite, entire diet cultures that I had to exit from, and the reality that I was actually a 4th-generation eating disorder survivor. I wasn't the first. I had we suspect a grandmother, my mother, my sister was a 10-year severe survivor, and I still made the decision to extreme diet and restrict my body. Which, I didn't just restrict my body, I restricted my life and everybody's around me. So I was in therapy at the time because I'm going through this divorce thing. And my therapist was like, "You've been married since you were 19. You have not figured out how to be your own person. You haven't figured out how to have an opinion. So I want you to just start paying attention. Instead of just moving through the world, having thoughts and moving past them, I want you to start writing them down." And so began the 1,000 notes that live in my phone. And those notes, I reversed the way I started creating because, again, I'd already lost everything on social media. I was okay with starting something new, but I left up all the old stuff. If I was going to change, I needed to show people that people can change. You can go from somebody who is judgmental and rude and hateful towards themselves into something else. I had to prove it. So I left it all up, and I started changing the way I was creating by writing first. At the time, long captions weren't really a thing, and so I don't know if I was a trailblazer, I don't like to use words like that, but there was like a part that people weren't used to reading things any longer than an inspirational quote we Googled 5 minutes before we posted. So it was a great opportunity for me to take the things that my therapist was teaching me, figuring out how I actually felt, and putting them on the internet. Now, at the same time, I was like, hey, look, I also have a stretch mark. Isn't that cute? And I'd never seen stretch marks on other people before, so that was as brave as it got for me back then. And I started sharing my emotions, and I started accompanying them with photos that made me feel uncomfortable, because really cool things can happen from uncomfortable, vulnerable places. And I would post it, and I would throw my phone down and just like run away for an hour. Thank God the algorithm was different back then, and you didn't have to like be there for the first 15 minutes like you do now. By the way, you have to be there for the first 15 minutes after you post something now. That's like a whole thing. I also am giving business advice. See, I'm like here for everything. So I started posting, and I couldn't believe, I'd come back after that hour, and I couldn't believe that other people were having the same thoughts, feelings, and emotions that I had. It almost like opened a whole part of my soul. And then that photo where I was like, look at my little stretch mark. I was wearing an underwear set that the founder then DM'd me and said, I'd love you to come model. And I said, no. No thanks, guys, I'm still face tuning. I can't go model, that's fraud. She came back again, she's like, so the shoot's on Tuesday, it's not happening without you. And then she got her team on me, and they'd email me every 30 minutes. And I told her this story, I said this story again a couple weeks ago, and she looked at me and she's like, I forgot you said no. It's like, I said no. But I showed up that day to this shoot. And I got 2 spray tans before. I gotta look good. I've gained 20 pounds. This is a lot for me to do. And I thought they're gonna put me in high rise, up to the ribs underwear. We're not gonna actually show anything. And I'm sure they're gonna know angles and how to make a person look good, which means we take photos from here. Not here. But I got there, and the photographer's 2 feet shorter than me. They put me in low rise underwear, and they shoot from this direction. I don't know if you've ever seen your body from this direction, but I got to, without ever seeing it first, I got to see it in their ad. And I remember when I first saw it, I thought, sorry, I gotta pull up my underwear. And I just talked about it. I remember seeing the photo. You have to remember, so if you've never seen my body before, I have very extreme stretch marks all the way up to my ribs. They were there, I got extreme stretch marks in adolescence, but most people identify with them because of postpartum. I had up to a 10-pound child, and they were very big, and I'd never seen them before. I didn't know that other people had them. So this photo comes up, and I see it all over Facebook, and it's on Instagram, and I wanted to vomit because, again, I'm a fraud. So now this secret that I've been holding onto is being told all over the world. But you know the best part about a secret that's told? It loses its power. And the other part is, I got to read all the comments. Nobody knew who I was. This was not my community. This was people shopping for underwear. And there was, at first, hundreds, and then thousands, and then hundreds of thousands of shares of people saying, oh my gosh, this is what my body looks like. And for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't alone. There was actually a lot of people with a lot of different bodies, and we just weren't seeing them. So that moment, my secret was told, and I'm having this extreme emotion towards the fact of, this is losing power over me. Because the whole point for me was never, I need to figure out, I did think this was gonna be a thing. I thought eventually I'd get to a point of, I love my stretch marks. Look how beautiful and majestic they are. That happens 5% of the time. For the most part, I acknowledge them. I get it, they're there, it's a thing. My body can't be the vulnerable, wild, changing thing that I hinge everything else on in my life. I can't make good relationships out of a skinny body. I can't be a great content creator because I'm thin. I can't be an amazing personality because I have a size 2 waist. These are lies. There are very profitable lies, that we are happier, we are healthier, our lives change if our bodies do. Again, highly profitable. But in that moment of understanding and connecting with people I'd never seen before, understanding that I didn't actually have to love my stretch marks. I could move away from this. The secret's out, guys. Like, I didn't actually have to do all of these things. I started tiptoeing into this whole movement of self-love, body neutrality. Body positivity, by the way, is like for marginalized bodies. It's for those who are still lacking healthcare, access, clothing. They say obesity kills. It doesn't. We do. Because people are not being cared for. They're not getting access to things. So I highly, highly recommend following people who are out there doing activism work. I'm not that person. I am now still straight size. I'm a size 12. I can still shop wherever I like. I can still move in rooms without people making comments about me. There's a lot of privilege that comes along with that. So in the space of self-love and body neutrality, I found this whole exciting space where our bodies didn't have to be the most important part of us. They weren't our personalities. They weren't who we were. But we could start sharing our stories with them, openly grieving with them. And I thought I was like, yeah, I got this. But to be honest, I never to this day have looked in the mirror and been like, I love how I look. I had to go and lose 100 pounds and then gain most of it back to be like, yes, didn't happen. But what did happen is I figured out what self-love actually is. And that's a choice. It's a choice every day. And it's not one that I can write a recipe for. It's not one that you will do the same as I would. It is an act of showing up. It's an act of defiance almost against a culture that has taught us that we should be so distracted. And y'all, if you're a woman, identify as a woman, let's be real. We're being distracted because if we think that our body's the most important part of us, we're going to spend more time on that than anything that actually matters and can change this world. That same woman who forced me into going to that photo shoot called me one day when I was at about 80,000 followers, good decade into creating. I just got signed. At the time, nobody was signing anybody who was talking about body image because they didn't know what to do with you. Who would want to work with someone like that? And she called me up. She was in New York City, and she's like, Sarah, I think you need to be doing more of this, and you're working 2 jobs, and you're doing a lot. I want to offer you a 6-month contract to come on as a marketing consultant, part-time, but it's going to supplement you enough that you can go and do your job, that you can go and do what you're supposed to do. That woman changed my life. This is now time 2 she's changed my life. So I took that offer. The brand is Knix, by the way. They have thigh savers, and they're really nice. You don't chafe, like, at all. They're like, right? Anyways, they're really good. Sponsored. They still sponsor me today. It's kind of cool. I just went to a live photo shoot in Barbados with them last week with the founder, and we had a good heart-to-heart about all of this. I quit my job, and I had 80,000 followers. By the end of the month, I had 100,000, and this was mind-blowing. But I made a commitment when I quit my job because the only reason I had any sort of heart in this was the same reason I started in the first place. I wanted to connect. So I didn't want to be a creator who just created and dropped their phone and walked away. I wanted to be there. I wanted to be in the community. I wanted to talk to people. I wanted us to have conversations about this stuff. Talk about divorce. Let's talk about our bodies. Let's talk about motherhood and how messed up it is sometimes. And so by the end of that first month, I had 100,000. By the following February, I hit 1 million. And by the end of the next year, I hit 2 million. Thank you. I'd love to take credit, but you know what actually did it? Is that 4 hours a day that I spent in comments and DMs made my community something that I have never seen before. I don't even use hashtags. I'm so sorry if somebody else was like, your strategy is hashtags. I've never used one in my life. Well, I probably did when I was doing weight loss stuff because I really needed those clicks. But I don't use hashtags usually, unless like they're a joke. My community has been the reason all of this has worked out because we invested in each other. When people invest in you and they believe in what you're doing, they share your work. So when you're writing from a heartfelt place and from reality of who you are instead of this falsified version of what Instagram looks like, that's where I ended up finding my success. And it's so cool because that was like 3 years ago. And now we're in this place where we're seeing the rise of TikTok stars. You guys are going to hear a TikTok panel afterwards. We're seeing a rise in people who who didn't fit the mold, and they did something else. You know, if you were never invited to the parties, it's okay to start your own. There are people, you're with me. It's okay to start your own parties. It's okay to build your own community. I was so exhausted, nearly killed myself trying to be a part of a community that I just felt on the fringe of. And now I get to show up and I get to show my thigh savers off on a stage. And I don't give a crap. That's who I am as a person. This is who I am. This is how I show up and how I choose to create and how I like to talk about things I went through after feeling like the most confident person in the world, making that choice every day. I had a baby again last year, and let me tell you, took me right back into the ring. After giving birth for the 4th time and 16 years of birthing and breastfeeding and all of that jazz, it's not jazz at all. It's really not. I have what's called an apron belly, and I remember being like, oh my gosh, my stomach over. First of all, why an apron? Patriarchy needs to take some notes on things. We don't want to wear aprons all the time. But they called it that. It's really special. So I have this overhanging belly, and I remember when I first saw it, I started to change in the hallways again, and my husband's like, what is going on with you? I was like, I'm struggling, guys. I'm not feeling great about myself. And I actually entered a time of open grieving. I had to grieve it. Instead of being like, feel great about your body, I'm good to go, I was like, I feel like crap, and we need to talk about that too. I don't feel confident at all. I need to talk about that too, because I need to figure out how I'm going to show up tomorrow, how I'm going to show up for my husband, how I'm going to show up for my kids, and how I am not going to restrict myself and my life again. So I grieved. And I shared my apron belly, and everyone's like, that's what I have. And I was like, see, again, we're all so similar and so not alike, and I just love it so much. It's like the most special thing in the world. Social media can be so damaging and yet so healing, and you have to choose what side you're going to be on. And I'm so glad that after years of trying to be something, I eventually just got to come home to who I was. And I think we all have that. We all have this desire to tell our stories, and yet we read the roadmaps of how other people wrote theirs. And we can learn so much from each other, but you can never learn more than you can from yourself. You can never figure out how to find success while abandoning who you inherently are and leaving that at the door. So now 14 years later, and actually this is my first time in Utah, by the way. Again, the soda shops, I just love it. I got one of those dirty Diet Cokes. Tell me, it's just, I have to figure, and the little ice cubes. And the Stanley Cups. I'm Canadian. Stanley Cup means something very different to us. It's a hockey thing. Here's Stanley Cups. I actually got a swig cup yesterday with Hannah. Anyways. I'm 14 years in, and I get to stand in a place, in a room full of people, in a place that saved me. Community a world away saved me. And I get to be who I am, and I get to show up, and I get to create, and I get to tell my stories, and I get to be flawed and human and imperfect. And it's the most beautiful thing about me. It's the most beautiful thing about you. Not how great you look. I look fire today. You all look fire today. we all probably spent way too much time and effort and money on outfits because we're like, we need to look good for this. But that's not what got you in the store. You made a choice. You made a choice on how you did your hair. You made a choice on what lipstick you wear. You made a choice on your outfit. If you spent $500 too much, I'm here with you. We're going to return them when we get home. I bought this like feather outfit. No, didn't even fit in the carry-on. I'm going to return it when I get home. I never do that. I hope everyone recognizes that every little bit of love and confidence will never, ever be in these things. Those are just reflections. They're just parts of us. It's how we choose to show up. But don't give credit to the wrong things. Don't give credit to a really bright red lipstick or a good pair of shoes. Those are the choices and the adornments on something already so perfect and so amazing that you get to show up in the world today. So, like I said, I didn't plan any of this. Had no idea that was all coming out of my mouth. But here we are. And let's get into Q&A. Yeah, I don't know how to awkwardly end anything. I'm a podcaster and I still don't know how to do it. So let's get into Q&A and
okay, is this on?
It is on.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, my name's Katie.
We met in the lobby.
We met in the lobby. You're the reason I'm here.
Yes,
I paid for this ticket to see you, and you're the reason my husband is spending his Saturday here at Social Icon because I didn't want to come alone.
Sweet thing.
I know, he's great. I've been following you for years, and I want to start by telling you, you have changed my life. And I know the haters don't bother you anymore, but I want to thank you for pushing through that phase because not only did you change my life, but I know you've changed probably millions of lives. So thank you so much for that. And I was expecting a lot seeing you in person, and what you just talked about exceeded my expectations.
Oh, so, thank God.
So thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Really was so inspiring. The question I have for you, I have a podcast. It's called The Working Mom Happiness Method. And a big part of the method is talking about how to de-link our value and our worth from the way that our bodies look. And you inspired a lot of that, so thank you for that as well. My question for you, as a longtime mama, and I know that this brand and this business must take a lot of hours out of your life, if you have any tips for the moms in the audience of how to create balance, how to combat mom guilt, if you could share some of that along your journey.
This is so kismet because I literally was in the middle of drying my hair yesterday, and because I'm so obsessive about capturing my feelings and thoughts when I have them, I dropped down to my knees and wrote on, like, that sounds dramatic, I just squatted. I dropped down and I pulled my phone out and I just started writing. And what I wrote, it hasn't come out yet, you guys are getting like a sneak peek at a post. But I just basically wrote that motherhood isn't being with your kids. And I know that's like a juicy thing to say, but how dare we make motherhood encapsulated into just spending time with them? It is so much more than that. Do you know how many texts and FaceTimes and phone calls and emails and teachers' things and dentist appointments I've done since I got here? About 45. I have had to arrange childcare. There's 3 people covering my ass while I'm gone. God bless my husband, but I actually needed 2 more people on top of that. We do a lot, but motherhood doesn't stay at the door when we go out and do things in the world. And more than that, for anybody actually nervous that I'm gonna flash you, I've got tape on, we're good. But on the flip side of that, if you are a creator or a mom who is also working, I was a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, I'm a 6-year working one, and I understand this like idea of balance feels like something we need to figure out, and it's actually not super possible. I don't believe that balance is there, I believe boundaries are there. And figuring out that being there isn't the same as being present. I can be all the way in Utah and be present for my kids. And I can be in my living room at home and not even there. Like I can be, we have to figure that out. But I have to work at home. I have to work around my kids. And we've just had really healthy conversations about, and I've really tried to just create healthy boundaries so that they understand that. And the one thing that I find so special is that my kids, when I think about them and when I think about what I did when they were little and putting my identity in them and making them my success story, is that now they actually get to watch me go do something and go pursue whatever dream, because when they become parents, that's what I want for them. So we have to almost sometimes self-parent ourselves and be like, that's what I want for you, so that's what I need to do for me. That's one of the best examples you can give them. Also, closing the door when you go to the bathroom and teaching them that there are boundaries. Kids think they have access. My daughter will, I put my phone backstage, she will literally FaceTime me in the middle of this. And sometimes it makes you feel a little unprofessional. I've been in board meetings where I've taken a phone call from a kid who is crying at school, but that's the difference. You can not be there and still be present. And my kids will always know their priority because I tell them that, because I am present when I'm present. But I've had to monitor myself too. Like I said, I'm 4 hours a day in DMs and comments, and I actually manually, like your phone will tell you how many hours a day you're doing something, and if I see it's getting too high, that's the only diet I approve of, I'll do a social media diet. I have to trim that back a little bit. So, but mom guilt, your husband's sitting beside you. Have you ever been asked if you experience dad guilt? Because my husband doesn't.
Not once.
No. You're just working away, coming home to get, yeah. We need to get better at like not getting into these habits where if we're gonna be equals in this world with our partners, we also need to start removing a lot of the language barriers that are coming out where we're saying like, don't you feel guilty? Or I did a TikTok once and a reel once all about like the things I've never heard said to my husband, and one of them was like, yeah, like about dad guilt, or like, who's babysitting the kids? And every time we leave the house, right? Like, babysitting? What? He's a parent. He's doing his job. So let it go. I know it's a hard process too, but ultimately, like figuring out those boundaries, you're gonna do great.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Hello. Girl, okay, I'm not even gonna lie with you. I came with my girl Bria. You know, Bria know who you were. I didn't know who you were at all. I'm not gonna lie to you. But you
Don't
was
lie to
talking,
me. We're here for
you
truth.
was talking, and I was like, okay. I followed you. I was like, okay. I love your energy. It was giving. You had it. So, I wanna. Okay, hold up. What am I trying to say? Okay, let me rephrase. My question revolves around like your vulnerability, like how you're able to do that. So I have an autoinflammatory disease. I have HS, so I have like holes that form in my body. Really painful. Okay. I like posted about it once. So I'm a model here. I model in Utah. You know, people know me. I don't know. Maybe y'all know me.
They better.
But yes, you know.
What's her handle? Throw it out. We all gotta follow.
Taylor Munlin, you know, follow me. Yeah. But so like I posted about it like once, but it freaked me out being that vulnerable. And now that I'm like modeling, it's summertime, you know, people are like, can you model the swimsuit and stuff? And even yesterday I had like open sleeves so you could see it, and I was like, I don't like this. I took it down. I took down my old post about it. I'm like, I don't know how to be more vulnerable. So I really admire that about you, and how do you do that?
Like I said, it's such when we feel like we're holding on to these secrets, they really do create power over us. And the really amazing thing about being vulnerable and sharing our parts with other people who maybe have never experienced it is we get to learn. I've never heard of this before. I would love to learn more about that, so that when I see it on somebody, it somewhat becomes normal because I understand it. We've seen this happen, the rise of people sharing their ostomy bags or talking about chronic illness, invisible illnesses. We've seen the rise of people with vitiligo, like Winnie Harlow, who is just like out there, and now that's so normal, if not absolutely obsessively gorgeous. So there's a lot of like rewiring of the brain. I'm not gonna say it's like super easy, but it took me being as vulnerable as understanding that I was showing my quote unquote worst parts to understand that they actually didn't hold value over me or my body or my success or my storyline, and that if anything, they could actually, if I was going to take back the power from them, they could become my power too. So I really do think, I'm not going to say like everybody needs to share their body online in order to love their body. No, that can't possibly be true. But I do think that there's something about finding ways to find love for that. Maybe it's practicing actually looking in the mirror with it. I took a macro lens to my stretch marks, and this something that I've been hiding my whole life, to suddenly look at it in this like incredibly detailed shot, I was like, this is amazing. Like, what an amazing thing, and how our bodies work and how different things can impact us and make us different. I don't think do you know how boring life would be if we were all the same? But I just think that at the end of the day, like, realizing that we're different and that that's not a bad thing and that it doesn't remove worth from us is a really special thing. But I get it that, like, I've done that too. I've posted something and then panicked and deleted it. But even the fact that you did it in the first place was a massive step. Like, it probably didn't feel like a big deal to anybody else seeing it, but for you, that's a huge deal that you took that picture, that you went through the process of actually posting it online. So what that you took it down? That was an amazing practice. That was a practice round. If you put it up again, cool. If you never do and you just hold on to that photo for you, that's just as valid, right? But only good things have happened, and has only freed me up for this world by being honest about it all.
I love that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
As a fellow Canuck, this soda stuff
The
is...
sodas.
It's a lot.
Are we going to open a franchise?
We probably should.
Yeah, I think so.
So, yes. But I run a small business by myself, and partially my husband, and I have two small
No, you
children.
run it yourself, don't.
Thank you. And I have a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old,
Oh
and
my
it's a lot,
goodness.
and it's not, I don't really post a lot about myself on my business page because, like, hi, I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
But when I post like reels or whatever on my page, I have like those like cringy feels inside after, because I'm like, well, what are my sister-in-laws gonna think? What are my in-laws gonna think? What are my sisters and family and friends gonna think? How do you move past worrying about what people in your close circle are gonna think about what you post, and just be like, F it?
That's such a good question, because I remember somebody came up to me and they were like on the street and they were like, oh my gosh, I was on an underwear ad on the side of a bus in Toronto, and they were like, oh my gosh, I saw you on a bus. And my dad was right beside me and he was like, yeah, I love that. My daughter's on the side of a bus in underwear. It's great for me. And I was like, shut up, Dad, get out of here. You know what? At the end of the day, like, do you know that video? Have you seen it? Where they're like, let them cringe.
Yeah.
Whose life are we living? Who are we doing this for? How many beaches have I not gone to because of a bunch of random people were there that I don't know? The internet is full of people. They're full of so many opinions. They're full of so many thoughts. Some of them are gonna cringe. Let them.
Yeah.
Like, you're actually doing all of these things and your family might push back. I definitely had family who can't even follow me. Here's the great thing about social media. They're all like cards, like birthday cards. You wouldn't send the same ones to your grandmother that you would send to your 8-year-old nephew. So social media platforms are the same. Facebook is for family stuff. Instagram is a choice. My family has the choice. My family also really loves it. My daughters, when they really, well, if you know my kids, my middle daughter, Gemma, aka Birdie, Gladys, she calls me Gladys, not Mom. She will dramatically read out my captions to me when she just wants to get me going. So I have to cringe at my own self sometimes, right? Like, it's gonna happen, they're gonna see it, they're gonna read it, but I hope at the end of the day you persevere, because the line between, pushing through that uncomfortableness into becoming inspiration is really fascinating, because I've watched people cringe at me and be like, why are you taking pictures here?
Why are you the way you are?
Why are you doing this? Like, this is a lot. I remember when I landed my first keynote and I told my grandmother, and she was like, they're paying you to talk? I was like, yeah, turns out all those report cards of she talks too much in class, whole career. It's working out. People are gonna cringe. It's gonna happen. Don't let it go over, don't let it hit you too much, because at the end of the day, if you're doing it and you're trying things, and let me tell you, my blog was probably one of the worst, could win awards. It had to be cringe, because eventually that's how you get good. You have to suck at it first. I'm not saying you suck. I'm just saying you might.
I do, but it's fine.
It's fine. You get better. I suck at video. I'm getting better. It's getting there, right? It's all just a practice. We're not meant to be perfect. We have to kind of be flawed on the path to being imperfect, but real, right? And I think we're now in a time that people are actually excited about that. They don't want to follow people who are perfect. We want to follow people that we connect with, and we connect with real people, not figures on a social media app anymore.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome. Good luck with your brand. I started a brand when my kids were like babies.
It's a lot.
It's a lot. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hi.
My name is Bella. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So my husband and I, we just got married in December, and the baby chatter is happening. Everyone's like, when are you getting pregnant? When are you having kids? And I'm really excited to like step into that era of my life, but whenever it comes up, I get so nervous about losing my beautiful body. Like, you know, I've been into my whole life and I feel really good about that. And so I was just wondering if you had any suggestions of like how to not be fearful and like kind of neutralize that, stepping into motherhood and becoming pregnant. I hope you like get my question.
Yeah, no, and I'll be honest, at a time that I got pregnant with my last, I was actually really comfortable in my body. It takes a long time to find comfort, especially after change, and I felt really good about how I looked, if I was honest. And then I got pregnant and I thought, you know what, I was never an active person in my last pregnancies. I'm really gonna like keep up on my workouts. I'm gonna feel really good. I wanna have a really strong pregnancy and a great birth. And then I began to bleed and I was diagnosed with previa and was put on what's called pelvic rest, which meant I could do nothing with my pelvis, including exercise and other things you do with your pelvis. I don't know how much we're allowed to say, but you can make some guesses. So my body changed a lot. I was so nauseous. The only things that I could stomach was ices and instant mashed potatoes.
Be ramen and Takis for me.
Yeah, so it was a lot. And I ended up having prenatal depression for a number of reasons. Some of them from like past trauma, some of them from fear of what my life was gonna look like. I would have a successful career, now I'm gonna have a baby, how is that gonna work? There was part of me that's like, how much is this changing my body? Because it happens so fast. But I think that because we live in a time of bounce back culture, we live in a time where we look at a woman who's had a baby and we say, you look like you've never had a baby. That we're so ingrained on that's what our purpose is, not to actually be the portal between a spiritual world and a physical one, which is the most incredible thing that we can do, or to just be parents or mothers. Like these are such beautiful things. And to minimize it down to, but do you look like it never happened? It's so ingrained in us. It is going to be, I think, an active process of allowing yourself I love the theory of the first thought, second thought. Your first thought is, I don't want to lose my body to anything. Second thought being, your body's not going anywhere. It changes, and it's going to change a million times over, and that is not where my value is, and that's how rewiring your brain works. It's like figuring out that your instinct is what's been ingrained in you to think, that we've been wired to think that way, and the second one being what you choose and what you decide. But you're gonna have to grieve through that process for sure. Change is a really hard thing sometimes. And a lot of people do, I don't wanna comfort you and be like, you might look like you never had a baby. You're probably gonna look like you had a baby. What a cool experience. What an amazing mark on your body to be able to have the history of what it's done. So kind of just channel the best parts of that and neutralize yourself from your body instead of finding that as a way to make you confident. Instead, find other things to plug into so that you can be more than that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay, I'm also here all the way from Toronto.
No way!
Yeah.
So the soda shops.
I haven't gone.
You need to go to Swig.
I need to go.
I'm sorry, I've made the executive decision that's Swig.
I need to like write it down, like put it on Google Maps, see how far it is. My question is, when you were growing so fast, like how did you handle that many eyes on you so quickly? Like you said, you went from 80,000 to 100,000, so like 1 million in 1 year. Like how did you kind of like just deal with so many eyes on you all at once, even if they were all positive?
I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I really thought that hitting 1 million followers was gonna be like, okay, I've made it. I'll relax now. I'll never worry about metrics again. I'll never worry if people like me or not. no, like I remember I had hit 1 million and somebody said to me, I wonder when you're gonna hit 2. It was 5 minutes before that happened. And I think about this with like Taylor Swift. She has like a #1 song. She doesn't get to stay at #1 forever. She has to write more songs. So there is that pressure to be like, how are you gonna stay? How are you gonna stay relevant? How are you gonna do this? I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I don't have those thoughts or that it isn't mayhem, but the one thing that's been really cool is it's never gone to my head. Like, yeah, it's a cool thing sometimes to throw it at parties. Like, yeah, I have an Instagram. You want to look it up? And then you see the look in their eyes. That's fun. I do like that. I'm not going to lie to you. But overall, like, I don't feel like a different person. I would never. My goal is to, I know I'm on a stage right now and this is an oxymoron, but my goal is not to like elevate myself above people, but to like constantly remind myself of like that we're all in this human experience together and like we're all just figuring it out. And I just happen to have a lot of numbers behind me, but that wasn't my reality at the beginning, but I'm still the same person now and really continuing to humble myself through the experience of like gaining social media fame, just to remind myself that I'm still the same goof that gets pimples every period and has IBS, like, I don't know, what else you want me to say, but all of those things, right? Like just really, and knowing that feeling of relief of success doesn't ever actually come. It's an uncomfortable feeling to have to navigate what it's like to have a job that you get a performance review every day and having to be mentally tough to that or crying a lot to some really safe people for that, right? It's just it's a balance of figuring it all out.
Awesome, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, honey.
So I had a baby now 7 months ago, and I feel like a lot of people ask me questions in regards to my son, but never me. And so for me to you, I want to know like how you're doing now that Lemmy, she's older, she's
Now that she's
starting
walking
to walk.
behind my back,
Behind
my back, she's walking.
She started to walk, you've
Yeah.
weaned, like all of these different things. How are you doing? Because I haven't got there yet, and I don't have an example as in like sisters or parents or anything like that, so I'd love to know how you're doing.
To surrender to motherhood, especially with a newborn, is a whole other thing. I felt like a shell of myself for that whole experience, especially with nursing. Your body's not yours, your time isn't yours. It's tough. It's really tough to kind of like, where am I in all of this? And I found that through the whole experience, this last time especially, I remember going to the doctor and being like, I'm just feeling off with some stuff, and like everyone's checking on the baby. She's got appointments every 2 months, but like I haven't gone for anything. And the nurse looked at me and she was like, yeah, no, nobody's gonna look out for you anymore. You have to do this. Like this is on you to take care of yourself. So the answer to it is I'm actually doing really great. Now that I've like that first year is so chaos, and I think it's very blinding to what comes after it. Like, where do you go from here? This is chaos, it's messy, like it's a lot of things. And now I'm like slowly coming out of that. We're sleeping, don't hate me, do not hate. We sleep 12 hours a night. Sleep 12 hours a night. There's balance again. Well, balance, that doesn't really exist, but balance enough, right? Like I figured it out. But I'll tell you the biggest thing that actually ended up helping me was not trying to figure out big moments on how to like help myself or like find myself, but I knew that if I could begin and end my day with just a moment to myself, that I would be able to see myself there. So I always started with a 5-minute skincare routine at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, and those were the only 10 minutes I had alone with myself, looking in the mirror, having a moment, because there was no more time, but I could begin and end my day with that, and just to remind myself that I was still there and there was gonna be me after it. So thank you, because I know, like, nobody really asks about you. To be honest, most people follow me for my baby now anyways. She's apparently an icon. But like that happens, right? Like our shift, and we also do it to ourselves. We shift all of our attention to our children, and it's such a beautiful thing, but we have to take care of ourselves too, and we have to check in with ourselves and check in with each other. So there's more coming. It gets better. You sleep more. You come back. It'll happen.
Thank you, everybody, for your questions, and thank you, Sarah Nicole.
Thank you all.